Number 10. Origin speculation. Before we had more insight into Punchline's origins, many fans were speculating and creating their own origins for the character, loosely crafted out of assumptions and based on comments that Tynion had made, which they then kinda twisted to suit their own means. The fact is, one of these origins was pretty outlandish but gained so much traction that it actually had to be addressed and denied by James himself. The theory was that Punchline had actually first appeared in Tom King's Batman run in issue 38. How was this possible? Fans speculated that she was originally Matthew Warner, who has now resurfaced, somehow healing his facial scars and transitioning from male to female to become Punchline. This was pretty outlandish for a few reasons, the main one being that the idea that Tynion, who created the character, somehow didn't, and that really Tom King was the true creator, and that the comment that inspired the theory was that Tynion said Punchline wasn't a nice guy. The key word that people latched onto apparently being guy. Tynion obviously dismissed this theory and any connection of Punchline to issue 38. So yeah, Punchline is not Matthew Warner, but apparently a lot of people thought that could be a thing. Number 9. The funniest. In the new issue of Batman issue 93, Punchline appears and makes a pretty big claim that she is the funniest person that the Joker has ever met. She is triumphant when she declares this, but what's interesting is the response she incites from Harley at her declaration. Being the funniest person to Joker, after all, might not be a good thing, and it could mean that Punchline's position or the respect she appears to have from the Joker is more unstable than we've previously been led to believe. While Punchline sees this information as something to gloat about, Harley gives us a different perspective, that the Joker loves to talk and make jokes, and that it is more likely that to the Joker, Punchline is just another one of his many jokes, and he's playing her. Harley reminds us that Joker has said many times that so-and-so is the funniest person he knows, and to take the compliment with a grain of salt, although I don't think Punchline's listening to Harley anytime soon. Number 8. First appearance. When was Punchline's first appearance? While it was officially supposed to be in Batman issue 89, some have theorized the Punchline actually appeared way before this, and that we got our first look at young Punchline in issue 664 of Batman out of 2007. Although this character, who does bear a resemblance to Punchline, seems to have been referred to as Ellie, not Alexis, by Batman. And Tynion himself has commented the Punchline's first appearance was not till this year, 2020, in issue 89 of Batman. He keeps telling people this, but they're not listening. Fans and collectors have still been buying up issue 664 and ignoring Tynion's designation of Punchline's first appearance. I can't deny she does look a lot like Punchline, this Ellie character. Number 7. 3 Jokers? Punchline is one of the 3 Jokers? Just kidding, April Fools! But there was a time when everyone thought that this could be true. As part of an April Fool's joke, Jeff Johns revealed that Punchline would be one of the 3 Jokers who took over for the original following a car accident involving Batman and the Joker himself. People were confused and shocked by this statement. Johns also claimed that Jason Fabok, Jorge Jimenez, and James Tynion were all in on the plot, but later revealed that it was all an April Fool's joke, for better or for worse. Would you have been into Punchline being one of the 3 Jokers, or would that revelation cause you your one bad day? Let me know in the comments. Number 6. Her differences to Harley. On our Punchline Origins video, I noticed a comment on how no one really talks about what the differences between Harley and Punchline are, instead simply stating that they are different and that's kinda it. So we're gonna touch on that a bit here and break down some of the differences we have seen thus far. Why do we say Punchline is Harley's opposite in the first place? Well, this statement actually comes from James Tynion IV himself, one of her creators, who has basically helped to make that the character's tagline. He created Punchline with this in mind, and seeing as how he's her creator, I think we can consider his statement as evidence. He would know what she's about. Fundamentally, Harley has always appeared to be more manic, more spontaneous. She'll steal a jetpack just for fun and wreak havoc with her gal pal Poison Ivy in Metropolis just for a change of scenery. She'll ask you for outfit advice while you're in the middle of a shootout. She's the kooky kind of crazy, which also makes Harley super fun and usually quite a loud character. Punchline thus far has shown us that she is methodical when it comes to her plots. She's killed a bunch of homeless people while testing her Joker venom just to make sure it was perfect before using it on her college's dean. When she spots Harley and Catwoman in the cemetery, she prefers to survey them as opposed to confront them. Thus far, she's appeared to be methodical, stealthy, and quiet. Although I will say both Harley and her do seem to be both quick to react. They got good reaction time. Other than her fast reaction time, all these traits contrast Harley Quinn's personality. 5. Not everyone's a fan. Many people have been excited about Punchline because there's just so much hype around her, and it's always exciting when a new big bad is introduced. We want to know everything about them, especially if they have a close connection to the Joker like Punchline does. But while many people are waiting to see what she will get up to and are looking forward to reading more about her, some characters in the comics already feel like Punchline is so passé, namely Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman. In issue 92 of Batman, she referred to Punchline as simply Joker's new girlfriend, and in issue 93 she brings up how obsessed Punchline seems with creating one-liners and witticisms using her own name. Everyone loves their little names when they've just gotten started, don't they? Catwoman says, implying the Punchline has not yet earned the cred that she throws around yet in Selina's eyes. Number 4. Fastest knives in Gotham. Something scary impressive about Alexis is just how quick she is with her knives. She seems so far to prefer fighting with a couple of small, sharp stiletto knives. In issue 93 of Batman, she proved fast enough to slice through Harley Quinn's jacket before she could fully move out of the way. That might not sound too impressive considering Harley Quinn is still just a regular human for the most part, but Harley is also known for being a skilled and nimble acrobat, so if anyone could tumble out of Punchline's way fast enough, you'd think Harley would be one of those few. If she had reacted a second slower, she likely would have lost some skin to Punchline's stilettos as well. Number 3. Just the Way You Are. We've recently learned that Punchline loves Joker just the way he is. In some kind of twisted take on the Bridget Jones' Diary moment, she confesses this to Harley Quinn during their fight in issue 93 of Batman. Punchline, in fact, hates Harley because she sees Harley as someone who once tried to fix and cure the Joker, instead of accepting him for the insane and diabolical clown that he is. Aw. I originally thought Harley was more crazy than Punchline, but now with this revelation, I'm not so sure. Number 2. Punchline gets the last laugh. We finally got to see how the first fight went between Punchline and Harley, and it was devastating. Watch out, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. As expected, Punchline took this first round, but in a much more brutal fashion than I think many of us were anticipating. Although to be fair, Harley has taken a lot of beatings in the past and managed to get back up. Still, this fight ended in a way that left many Harley fans reeling, even knowing how resilient Harley is. Punchline manages to dodge bullets and get up close near the end, not just going in for a quick 1-2 stab, but full on slicing Harley's throat as she passes her before having her clown goons toss Harley back out into the sewer. Whew, sounds like an infection waiting to happen to me. While her finishing move on Harley doesn't solidify her place as a staple character just yet, it seems like Punchline is definitely continuing to move in that direction. Number 1. Fleece the Cat. You might be thinking, what is more terrifying than Punchline taking out and possibly killing Harley Quinn? Well, she doesn't stop there. You might think that fight would be all we'd see of Punchline in issue 93 of Batman because it was pretty big, but it's not. Joker War is finally set to start near the end of this issue, and a big part of that is thanks to Punchline. She not only dumps Harley with a slit throat into the sewers, but after, she heads out to fleece the cat. Catwoman finds herself double-crossed, and then has herself taken out by seemingly being shot from behind by Punchline. I'm betting this shot will end up being non-fatal, but with Batman currently disabled himself and in a totally different location, it is possible that Catwoman could be left here to bleed out, so she could die.
And at number 10, his origin. When Black Adam first debuted under Fawcett Comics, he only appeared once in that entire run of Shazam comics, who at the time was known as Captain Marvel in those days. He was an ancient Egyptian man back in his initial origin, named Teth Adam, which, fun fact, translates into Mighty Human. Anyway, he was chosen by the wizard Shazam to be his successor. Now the wizard believed that Teth Adam was morally pure. Oh, how he was incorrect about that one. Teth Adam is soon corrupted by his newly granted powers, deciding that he should rule over the world. So he overthrows and kills a pharaoh, and assumes the Egyptian throne. This does not bode well with Shazam the Wizard, who renames him Black Adam and then banishes him to a distant star in the universe. Black Adam then spent the next 5,000 years flying back to Earth, arriving in the year of 1945 to discover that Shazam had appointed new champions, Captain Marvel, Mary Marvel, and Captain Marvel Jr. So of course there was a kerfuffle. And at number 9, he ripped a dude in half. Black Adam loves violence. The things he can do with his hands are mind-blowing. Like, not in a good way, more of a he'll rip you in half kind of way. I hope there's no weird sexual innuendo in that. Ripping someone in half is something that actually happened in 52. The series written by Jeff Johns, Grant Morrison, Greg Rucka, and Mark Waid that featured 52 issues, once a week for a year between 2006 and 2007, depicting the events that took place during the missing year after Infinite Crisis. Do not mistake it with the New 52. Very different things. It's not like DC wants to be confusing or anything. Black Adam at this point has taken on the role of hero. I use air quotes because dude has a much more hardened perspective on how criminals and crime should be approached. In issue 3 of the series, he gathers press in front of the Kandak embassy, Kandak being a fictional Middle Eastern country in the DC universe by the way, and then flies overhead declaring his dissatisfaction for the ways heroes like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman have dealt with crime in the past. Now to prove this point, he grabs Terra Man, a small-time DC villain who is like a hardcore environmentalist, and and rips him in half, his limbs thrown into different directions. Black Adam's point? Well, criminals like that guy don't deserve to live. I mean, like, maybe if he was someone like the Joker, like, maybe understandable, but this guy? Nah. Anyway, this is a running theme with Black Adam. He stands by his extremist opinions and he is very, very committed to them. And at number 8, Ah-Man. Black Adam has had his fair share of retconning over the years, as we previously mentioned. His origin story was revisited again during the New 52, in which Billy Batson witnessed the beginnings of his foe's origins, which follows the story of Ah-Man, a Kandaki boy who lived a life of slavery and abuse in ancient times. His uncle was Black Adam, who just was Adam back then. Adam would help the boy escape slavery and they would encounter the wizard Shazam. It was revealed that the wizard had selected Ah-Man instead, and during the escape, Adam had been badly injured, so Ah-Man used his powers to heal his uncle. Ah-Man wanted to use his powers to help others and cure his former slave masters of their evil ways, but Adam was like, he wanted vengeance. Adam killed Ah-Man when Ah-Man attempted to summon lightning to transform himself, with his death happening off panel, but Adam calling it the boy's sacrifice, telling Billy Batson that he'd go to any lengths to free this world from those who enslave it. Intense. Kills his nephew who's a child. That's bad. We got some more murder coming in at number 7. He killed a Yeti. In 2007 we got a tie-in story from the 52 series titled World War III. It was a 4-issue miniseries that explored what 52 was initially intended to focus on. That series kind of started to evolve into a different direction than DC initially anticipated. Now in World War III the focus is Black Adam and his uncontrollable rage towards humanity after his family was murdered, with the superhero community rallying together to try to stop his rampage. We'll be talking a bit more about some of the actions that he takes during that story later on our list, but for the purpose of this number, spoiler time! Adam ends up being depowered by Zatanna and Captain Marvel, aka Shazam. When he's in the Himalayas, now with a beard and long hair, he finds himself crossing paths with a Yeti. And what does Adam do to this Yeti? Well, obviously he beats it up. He yanks out its intestines and then uses his intestines to rappel down a mountainside. I mean, at least he's resourceful. He's like, how do I get down this mountain? Better kill this Yeti and use its guts. And at number 6, he made death die. God. During World War III, Adam, while in a state of blinding rage, seeks the Horseman of Death in order to get his vengeance. When he finds Death, who has been endowed by the power of the deaths of every human being on the planet, the two duke it out. But even Death isn't strong enough to deal with Black Adam's powers and his sheer willpower and determination. Black Adam beats the crap out of him, interrogates him, and then smashes his skull into the ground, all while squeezing his fingers into his brain. They're in there deep. I have a suspicion that he just really likes gooey things. Black Adam also knows how to pillow talk real good because he tells Death that he is going to spend the rest of the night slowly ending his life. Speaking of Black Adam's fingers in squishy places, and at number 5, Psycho Pirate. Okay, so I think we can all agree that jabbing your fingers into someone else's eye sockets is like a really crappy move. Think about it. Obviously you're screwing up the victim's eyes to whatever condition they may end up being depending on your jab, but you are also the one who is sticking your fingers into someone's eyeballs, and that is a texture that I would personally try to avoid. Doesn't seem that appealing. Imagine what would come off on your fingers after. But Black Adam doesn't give a crap. In Infinite Crisis issue 6, villain Psycho Pirate, who was working with Lex Luthor at the time, comes across Black Adam, who has just been freed from captivity. He had previously manipulated Adam into using his powers, and Adam does not like being manipulated. So what did the anti-hero-ish do? Well, midway through Psycho Pirate's attempts to reason with Adam, Adam just shoves his fingers right into the villain's eyes. But it's not just his eyes, it's straight through his head as well, to the extent that he pokes the villain's mask right through his entire skull and flesh. Like a that kind of movement. My favorite part about this though, when Power Girl asks Adam if that was really necessary, he responds with, absolutely. Just dead serious, absolutely. He's got a bloodlust. And at number 4, he punched a hole through Terra. And we're talking the character, not the planet here, friends. Adam has a thing for punching holes through people. Like, this is a reoccurring trend. During the World War III story event, Black Adam had wiped out an entire nation, more on that later, so naturally a couple of superheroes had some beef with the magical villain. One of those heroes was Terra, who despite having a whole lot of confidence in standing up to the anti-hero now villain, she found herself probably filled with great regret in doing so when Adam slammed his fist right through her chest. Or rather, she found herself filled with great fist and ruptured organs. Ugh, everything is wrong about this number. Moving on to number 3, he ordered the death of a dictator. Execution time. Back when Black Adam was working with the Justice Society of America, they ventured to Kandak in an attempt to liberate the country. The country is being ruled over by a dictator called Assam Muhammad. After ravaging the infrastructure of Muhammad's regime, they find the dictator himself. So what does Adam do? Well, in JLA issue 56, he edges on his teammate Atom Smasher to murder the dictator, tossing the dictator underneath of the hero and telling him to execute him. It's worth noting that in the New 52, Black Adam's ties to this country are very important to his stories and his motivations. It was revealed in the JSA series that Kandak is the homeland of Black Adam, after, the original retconned origin. And he was burned to the ground back when the magically powered superhero was protecting Egypt over 3,600 years ago. When Kandak was destroyed by a supervillain named Akton, his wife and his children were killed in the process, which is why Adam takes extreme measures to protect the city. But this caused Shazam to remove his powers and entomb him for centuries. Overall, there is a lot to unpack there with Adam. Speaking of his family, and at number 2, he killed his wife. To call Black Adam a homicidal psychopath wouldn't be incorrect. Nothing proves that more than the time that he ended his own wife's life in Black Adam the Dark Age issue 2, although he had his reasons, but we'll get there. So in the aftermath of all those disastrous events in the World War III story arc, Adam decides to chill out a bit, lay low, and get his wife Adriana Tomaz back, who was currently deceased at the time. But he still carried around her bones with him until he found a Lazarus pit. Jackpot, right? Nope. Turns out that dropping someone's bones into a Lazarus pit to bring them back to life has some pretty bad side effects. Now, despite being reunited with his love, he realized something horrific was happening. Her body was slowly decaying. So in order to spare her from any more suffering, he killed her. Sure, it was an act of mercy and a kill that he claims to have committed out of his love for her. And she clearly wasn't complaining about it, but still, the whole situation along with how Tomaz looked at the end, definitely something our eyes could have done without seeing. And finally, in at number 1, he destroyed a whole nation. Like, no joke. I actually kind of hinted to this earlier on this list. Now, as you can gauge from the rest of the numbers on our list, Black Adam played a pretty big role in 52, and World War III was his narrative. It's all about Adam seeking to avenge his family sick with grief. In 52 issue 45 though, he takes things a little too far. And by a little too far, I mean he destroyed an entire nation called Bialya. So remember how we mentioned that Adam was hunting for the Horseman of Death? Now prior to finding him, his search brought him to Bialya. And in a fit of rage, Adam burns it to the ground while looking for death, blaming the nation for being partially responsible for his family's demise. He exterminates the entire population of 2 million citizens. Death would feed on all of the slaughter and get stronger because of it, but as we mentioned earlier, he was still no match for Adam and his grief. This would prompt several heroes to try to hunt Adam down and prevent his rampage from spreading across the globe, including the likes of Tara, who he punched a hole through. Dealt with her by deploying one of his favorite party tricks, punching his fist through her body. Full circle, people. Oh, Adam. At least he's consistent.
Number 10. He killed his parents. Black Mask was originally known as Roman Sionis, the heir to a cosmetics company known as Janus Cosmetics. At the age of 21, he became its vice president and fell in love with a model named Circe. His parents did not approve of Circe and sought to fire her. However, Roman pretended to accept their decision and instead proceeded to kill both of his parents in a mysterious fire. So it just goes to show, treat your children well, lest they grow up to be supervillains, in which case, you're their first target. Number 9. He was dropped on his head at birth. So, if Black Mask actually had half-decent parents, this would be the most terrifying thing that could ever happen for the parents of a newborn child. But seeing as they were pretty much garbage human beings, shortly after his birth, Black Mask was dropped on his head. It's hard to say if it was this or the years of abuse that led to Black Mask's complete lack of empathy, but at the very least, it was one more strike against humanity. His origin story quotes, "People forever after said there was something strange in his eyes, a certain dullness which never fully concealed the burning." Which, between this and everything else that's going to happen to the character, yeah, let's just say he had a rough life from the very start. Number 8. Face melt. So, despite the fact that his name is Black Mask and not Black Skull, that mask is actually fused to his face. After a battle with Batman and Robin, Roman tripped into the fire he himself set, and the mask permanently melted into his skull, making it a permanent fixture upon his face. Jeez, that's a Goosebumps level nightmare. So take that as a lesson, kids. Pyromania doesn't pay off. I mean, unless you're murdering your parents, that seemed to go okay for him. Number 7. Torture. While Black Mask is more of a gangster than a supervillain, what really sets him apart from the other gangsters is his fascination in torturing his victims. Black Mask himself has stated he views it as an art and finds something appreciative in causing another pain. The origin of this concept came about after he read about the Spanish Inquisition, and he knows no relent. Black Mask once kidnapped the sister and brother-in-law of Selena Kyle, and after torturing the brother to death, forced her to eat her husband's remains, which drove her insane. I have to wonder who got the inspiration for this first, Black Mask or Cartman. Number 6. He was bitten by a raccoon. As a boy, Roman was typically ignored by his parents, who fell into pretty much stereotypical bad rich parents' behavior. As a boy, he once ran into the woods and started chasing a raccoon, as he felt kinship with the creature, which was also trapped in a lifelong mask. However, when he approached the raccoon, it was found to be rabid and attacked him, causing him to fall through the woods and develop a rabid fever. And while he ultimately recovered from the rabies, he felt that day was the day he was dragged into hell. Not a bad origin story. In another universe, he'd have been Raccoon Man, so this is a preferable alternative. Number 5. Mind control powers. In the reinvention of the character for the new 52 lineup, Black Mask possessed a split personality, with Roman as one entity and Black Mask as the other. The Black Mask, however, had some kind of magical powers. After Arkham Asylum is attacked by the Talons during the Night of Owl storyline, Jeremiah Arkham gives Roman his Black Mask so he can control the inmate and force them to defend the asylum so Arkham could then hide himself. Pretty intimidating power, or at least it would be, but it only works on weak-willed people, so Batman was basically immune. Ah well, this dude doesn't need powers to be evil and creepy anyway. Number 4. He killed Robin. Sort of. Yeah, Black Mask actually killed a Robin, sort of. In the War Games storyline, Black Mask actually did kill Stephanie Brown, the 4th Robin. Black Mask tortured her and eventually shot her, and while she made it to a hospital, she ultimately did not survive. Or at least, she was thought to have not survived. It turned out in Robin's spoiler special number 1 that Stephanie's death was fake so she could keep what she knows to herself. So, at least Black Mask thinks he killed a Robin, and was willing to kill someone so close to Batman, and let's face it, that takes some guts. Number 3. The founder of Arkham Asylum was once Black Mask. The founder of Arkham Asylum, Jeremiah Arkham, actually became the second Black Mask for a short period. During the time when Bruce Wayne was thought to be dead and Dick Grayson was Batman, Jeremiah Arkham appeared as another Black Mask and blew up Arkham Asylum, partially attributed to him developing schizophrenia. As Black Mask, Jeremiah would employ explosive chips inserted into his inmates to control them. However, this was promptly stopped by Grayson Batman and led to Jeremiah being captured inside Arkham Asylum. So a schizophrenic insane asylum operator was using the asylum to build a criminal empire while taking another villain's identity. Yep, sounds like a Batman villain. Number 2. He controlled Bizarro. In Red Hood and the Outlaws Volume 2, Issue 5, utilizing a techno-organic virus, is able to control the mind of Bizarro. Almost. This could have been pretty dangerous had it not been for the inability for him to control that mind of Bizarro fully, and eventually the virus overwhelming him, leaving him in a catatonic state. Like, literally a catatonic state. It basically destroyed his mind. Kind of a lame way to lose your fight against Red Hood, but what can you do? He did have a pretty powerful pawn for a while at least, and had the potential to be dangerous, so he was scary for like 20 minutes. Number 1. He controlled all of Gotham. This was pretty much the apex of Black Mask's achievements. After discovering that the War Games plan was designed to unite all of the criminals under a single leader, Black Mask announced that it would be he who would be taking over Gotham City. And despite ultimately losing his fight with Batman, the criminals still heralded him as their leader. No other villain in the Batman universe has ever achieved this, so Black Mask actually pulled off something pretty noteworthy here. Not bad considering the last item on this list.
Number 10. Sergeant Rock is around. For those of you who don't know who Franklin Rock is, he is one of the oldest DC comic characters around, having been in Our Army at War number 81 all the way back in 1959. He later then appears back as part of the New 52 in Justice League United number 13 in 2015. Although it's not exactly stated what his role is going to be in all this, I'm super excited to see what they do with the character. Number 9. Wonder Woman's got a new weapon. It seems as though Wonder Woman has traded in her classic lasso and decided to modernize her weapon arsenal with something that fits the post-apocalyptic aesthetic. A chainsaw. Dubbed by many as the Chainsaw of Truth, this new weapon is forged by Wonder Woman herself from parts of her invisible jet. Although we haven't fully seen it in action yet, you know it can do some damage. Number 8. The Dead Bats. We're introduced to the Batman Who Laughs lackeys known as the Dead Bats, and there are alternate versions of Batman as well from different multiverses. Very little is known about their origins, but I know from one look at them they're not to be messed with. My personal favorite from the bunch is Batman the Dinosaur. Number 7. The Rabid Robins. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Dark Knight Metal series, we're introduced to a group of demonic Robins who are essentially pets to the Batman Who Laughs, and they reappear in the series. They came into this terrible state when the Joker decided to drive Batman insane by recreating the Wayne murder right in front of him with captured children and their parents. The Joker then injects the children with a powerful Joker venom and kills the parents right in front of them. Unfortunately for the Joker, he got exactly what he wanted. He drove Batman so insane that he killed the Joker and set the entire Metal storyline in motion. Number 6. Justice League and Year of the Villain connection. The series spins out of the events of Scott Snyder's Justice League run, and also the Year of the Villain Hal Arison miniseries. In Snyder's 39-issue run on Justice League, the focus was on the team dealing with the effects of Dark Knight's metal. Throughout, we see the Justice League face off against Lex Luthor and the Legion of Doom as both teams battle over the soul of the universe, culminating in DC's Year of the Villain and the Justice/Doom War. And in Year of the Villain, Hal Arison, we follow Luthor as he deals with the aftermath of metal. I'm super excited to see all this ties together as the story is fleshed out. Number 5. Double Threat. Now there are two main antagonists in this series. Perpetua, the mother of the Over-Monitor, Anti-Monitor, and the World Forger, and of course the Batman Who Laughs, the deranged version of Bruce Wayne we met back in 2017. Even though Perpetua has more raw power than any of the other antagonists, I wouldn't sell him short because anyone whose brain is a cross between the Joker and Batman is not something you want to take lightly. Number 4. Batman is not messing around this time. Now Bruce's goal in this series is pretty much always be fighting and take any victory that'll come your way. Through some new equipment that I won't spoil for you, Batman launches an attack on the Batman Who Laughs. However, to his surprise, he's not assisted by Diana, who feels there's another way to end all of this. Number 3. Cosmic Wally West. That's just what I like to call him, that's not his actual name. I just say that when I'm referring to Wally West after the events of Flash Forward. With his newfound powers, West has been keeping Perpetua at bay while learning some of the universe's most well-kept secrets. One of which being why the heroes have been kept alive for so long. Number 2. Lobo's coming to have some fun. Although it's not stated what part Lobo will be playing in all of this, his line, "I found it alright, and now it's time for the main man to liven up this joint," after he digs up a round object, implies that Lobo is coming to play. And number 1. Is a new timeline on its way? Now Scott Snyder has stated time and time again that this series is a love letter to DC's superhero mythology, and even suggested that all this could tie together a ton of prior series. This has sparked some rumors that a new timeline could be on its way, and honestly, with how messed up everything is in the DC's dark multiverse, I wouldn't be surprised if we got a reboot sometime soon.
Number 10. Everyone's antithesis. Punchline was actually created to be the kind of opposite for a variety of different characters, all at once. When co-creator of her character, James Tynion, was coming up with the idea of what he wanted her to be, he realized he needed a villain that would stand out, someone he described as a great foil for Joker, a great foil for Batman, and who would be a great foil for Harley, who he also went on to say would have a big role in the upcoming Joker War story as well. So she's not just another Batman villain or just another henchman for Joker. She's meant to be someone completely different who can inspire something more horrific in the Joker while also playing a strong villain to Harley and Bats. Number 9. Actions speak louder than words. While Harley is known for being loud and outspoken as a character, she says / blurts out pretty much any thought that crosses her mind, Punchline, it seems, is more likely to keep quiet and choose her words more wisely. Her first few appearances were brief, and during her appearance in Hell Arisen, she didn't even say a single word. During her origin story, however, revealed in Joker's 80th anniversary special, we got more insight into just what motivates Punchline. From there, she seems to have found her voice a bit more. But while she is now a little more outspoken in the comics, she is still much more reserved and calmer when it comes to her conversation style and reaction in comparison to her opposite, Harley Quinn. Number 8. Chemistry skills. When it comes to Punchline, the more we get to know about her, the more I feel like I am also falling in love with her. She is not just a ruthless and skilled killer, she has a brilliant mind too, which probably just makes her more successful in her criminal field. She has displayed before that she could concoct her own version of a Joker Venom just from sifting through recipes on the internet. Making Joker Venom from scratch without the exact recipe isn't easy, even if you do get a little inside help. It's a complex formula, but Punchline manages to pull it off while still in college and make it look relatively easy. Number 7. Inspired by Joker. Alexis, as we now know her, was actually attending Snyder College when she made her transition from student to full-fledged criminal, at least as far as we know. I wouldn't be surprised if she'd actually secretly had a criminal past since before her college days. So far it seems she was inspired though by the Joker after hearing of the news of an attack perpetrated by him on Gotham City, which resulted in the death of some civilians. It's possible that she could have been a fan of Joker's for much longer, but it seems this event is, at least in part, what triggered Alexis to try to find a way to connect with the Joker and offer to join him. Seeing in him the kindred spirit of chaos inspired Alexis to start killing herself. You know someone is bad news when their idol is the Joker. Number 6, not just another fangirl. While originally Joker thought Punchline might just be another fangirl vying for attention, she has gone to pretty great lengths to prove herself to him, not just killing one person but multiple people. Before she and the Joker were officially allied, Punchline had already killed and experimented on homeless victims, who she thought would be the perfect for helping her to prepare for her first real kill. I'm not even sure if she would consider them noteworthy. She had to kill people just to kill someone, so that's pretty crazy. Number 5, who wins in a fight? In issue 92 of Batman, Harley Quinn and Punchline have finally come face to face and toe to toe, and we get to see them finally square off. Well, almost. The issue actually ends before we get to see them come to full blows, but they're definitely ready to duke it out. One of the more surprising facts that we learned about Punchline in this issue is that she definitely is not afraid of Harley, though maybe she should be. Punchline threatens to skin Harley alive and use her skin as part of a joke. And when Harley starts to swing her big hammer, Punchline does not back down. We'll have to wait to see if Punchline manages to actually skin Harley with her knives in the next issue. But although I think her confidence is somewhat intimidating, I think my money would still be on Harley for this battle. I personally wouldn't want to fight Harley with her giant hammer. Whew. Number 4, Killstagrams. During her origin story, Punchline seems to enjoy documenting her kill and the effects of her own batch of Joker venom by taking a video on her phone. Now, what this causes me to ponder is, what is Punchline's official kill count at this point? Has she just started killing more recently since testing out her Joker venom and coming into contact with the Joker, or was she killing possibly before this? And does she have more videos or photos on her phone that she keeps as mementos of all the murders she's committed? This definitely would help to ally her with the psychological and criminal classification of a serial killer, who often enjoy holding on to keepsakes from their crimes so that they can relive the exhilarating feeling they get from their kills. Number 3, Joker's girlfriend? So, while everyone has pretty much been calling Punchline Joker's girlfriend, including Catwoman, Punchline herself isn't really committing to this label just yet. Instead, Punchline has referred to herself as Joker's partner. Definitely in crime, and maybe in romance. We've seen the two hold hands, but that's kind of about it so far. I mean, she's only made, I think, 5 appearances. And it seems both Joker and Punchline admire one another, but that's about all I've seen. Granted, if she does end up considering herself his romantic partner, as the rest of the world has deemed her, how scary is that? How scary is it that after everything Joker did to Harley, he just went and got another girlfriend? I mean, I know both Punchline and Joker seem insane themselves, as Harley often also does too, but it's pretty insane of DC to give the Joker a new girlfriend after how his last relationship went down. Whew. I mean, everyone deserves love, but does everyone deserve love? Number 2, tricks up her sleeve. You can expect that the way Punchline deals with her enemies, and by extension her partner, the Joker's enemies, would be much more violent than most of what Harley got up to. Harley isn't so much about the torture as she is about the quick kaboom. But it seems like Punchline herself is very much a fan of inflicting pain and torturing others, more in line with Joker's approach. In Hell Arisen issue number 3, Joker refers to a funny trick the Punchline does involving a rusty saw that he says leaves the boys in stitches, leaving us with the image of Punchline sawing her victims in half with a rusty blade, similar to the old stage magic trick, except this trick is just straight up pain and torture. It's a horrifying image. And if this is something that happened, it makes Punchline one of the most horror-inducing companions that the Joker has ever had. Number 1, her philosophy. So one of the things that is so terrible about Punchline, or so great about Punchline, is really how relatable her perspective is. She is a well-written character. Her ideals seem to line up in a lot of ways for what Joker preaches, the importance of chaos. And for her, she rebels because she idolizes the anarchists and agents of chaos who have come before her. those agents of chaos throughout history. The world to her is a mess and is full of BS and lies. Nothing feels sincere. Everyone is a slave to programming. She kills because she can. She kills to make her own world and to challenge the status quo, which is terrible because killing innocent people, but her perspective is also kind of relevant. And to her, the people she kills aren't innocent. They're sheep.
Starting off our list with one of the OG members of the Teen Titans, in at 10, why Donna Troy was created. When the Teen Titans first debuted in the comics, it was in the Brave and the Bold issue 54 in 1964. The team was comprised of DC's sidekick characters, Robin, Kid Flash, Wally West, and Aqualad. But by the time issue 60 rolled around, they had adopted Teen Titans as their group name, and Donna Troy had joined the group as Wonder Girl. But unlike her teammates, Donna's reason for existing in the comics wasn't just to connect to younger demographics to improve comic book sales. She was the byproduct of the comics industry undergoing some drastic changes thanks to psychiatrist Frederick Wortham and his book Seduction of the Innocent, which attempted to correlate comic books with bad behavior in kids. He claimed a lot of outlandish things, including that Wonder Woman was a lesbian because she was depicted as a strong, independent woman. Right. In the aftermath of the Senate hearing that Wortham's book was catalyst to, DC had to change her character to make her more acceptable to parents, which included creating a Wonder family in which Diana would appear with her younger versions of herself and her mother. The teen version of herself was dubbed Wonder Girl. She eventually became her own character, Donna Troy, and Wonder Woman's sister. So all in all, Donna was created to make Wonder Woman look less queer. Fun. And at number 9, Donna Troy was recreated. So, Donna Troy has had a bit of a confusing history, as you can probably gauge from our last number. Now, after a whole story arc where she got married, had a kid who was prophesied to grow up into an evil dictator, who she then gave up her powers for in order to keep him and herself alive, she would eventually get her powers back, returning to the Titans under the name Troya. That happened after that husband turned into an ex-husband and her kid had died in a car crash. FYI. Bleak shit. Superheroes can't have love. By the time Wonder Woman issue 136 rolled around, Donna was wiped from reality's memory, and the newly reincarnated Diana would use her lasso to bind Donna and Wally West together, using Wally's memories of Donna to fill her soul and recreate her, rather than, going to another part of the multiverse and using one of those Donnas to do the same thing. So naturally, this move would have greater implications later on Donna's psyche, with the character constantly questioning if this version of herself was really true to who she was, or was merely just Wally's interpretation of her. Basically, she lived in a perma-existential crisis for a while because of this. Come on, Wonder Woman, you should know better. And at number 8, Dick's bad hair. Moving from trauma to bad hairstyles. Dick Grayson is often considered to be one, if not the hottest character in comics, but dude has been victimized by some really bad hairstyles over the years. In 1992, he had a mullet. This occurred in New Titans issue 88 when Mirage, who was disguised as Starfire at the time, convinced Dick that he needed a new look, stating, I quote, "It's the 1990s out there, sweetheart, and it's time you finally joined up." That mullet eventually grew out and became a ponytail. But luckily for readers everywhere, that ponytail would get snipped off by a member of the False Face Society, which was a group working for Black Mask. This occurred during a fight in 1996's Nightwing issue 1, so clearly making a point of snipping it off was something that Chuck Dixon and Scott McDaniel really wanted to see happen on the run. For the record, Starfire's hair was real intense too for a while and gave her a couple of extra feet in height. And Beast Boy also had a mullet in the 90s too, around the same time, so just mullets galore. So many mullets. Up next at number 7, Speedy was a junkie. Speedy, aka Roy Harper Jr., was the first of Green Arrow's wards. He debuted in More Fun Comics issue 73 in 1941 as an orphan whose father was a forest ranger who would sacrifice his life to save that of a Navajo medicine chief. That chief, named Bravebow, would raise Roy Jr., and eventually after he passed away, Green Arrow would ask Roy to become his ward. Roy would join up with the Teen Titans after Donna Troy did, who he actually began to date, but after the group disbanded for the first time, him and Donna broke up. Now around the same time, Green Arrow would lose his fortune and was neglectful of Speedy. So while his mentor was away on a cross-country adventure, Speedy would become addicted to heroin, which eventually led to the award-winning story Snowbirds Don't Fly, appearing in the Green Lantern Green Arrow crossover series. The two titular heroes were investigating junkies when, lo and behold, they discover that Speedy is a junkie. Green Arrow loses his shit and even beats Roy up over it. Speedy then quits being his ward, and then another junkie dies, there's a funeral, and then Speedy recovers on his own, returning to Oliver at that funeral at the end of the story to be like, hey man, I got over my addiction. Can I be your ward again? Bad timing, Speedy. There's a dead guy. who's being buried in the ground, who overdosed, and his mom is crying there, and you're like, take me back. Timing is everything. And at 6, Starfire's torture. Starfire's origins are pretty dark. So, her sister is Blackfire, a character who first appeared in New Teen Titans issue 22 in 1982. When she showed up, things got a little bit weird. So, Blackfire harbored a lot of hate for her sister, feeling denied of the throne of their home planet Tamaran because of her sister, even though it was not Starfire's fault at all. The day Blackfire was born, the Citadel Empire had committed genocide on thousands of Tamaranians, so she was believed to be a curse due to association. Because of that, it would be deemed that she wouldn't get the throne and instead her younger sister Starfire would. Blackfire would find her own way to the throne though, selling out her home and working with the Citadel Empire. And of course, she tortured Starfire. She would sell Starfire into slavery, sold her for 1 year at a time, like slaves on lease, because apparently that is what they do out there. Her masters could do anything to her as long as she wasn't killed, and at the end of every year Blackfire would get her back and then torture her some more. The torture appeared to be a lot of physical labor, but it was implied that Starfire was sold into marriages with aliens and was likely raped. Eventually though, her sister sentenced her to be executed. But before that could happen, they ended up being enslaved by the Scions, an evil alien race of scientists, who performed deadly experiments on the two of them. Eventually Corey got away, but she freed her sister despite all of that crap that she had pulled. And what did Blackfire do? She still tried to get Corey executed. Corey escaped that too and fled to Earth, so when Blackfire found her on Earth and kidnapped her, some major went down. Not only did the two duke it out violently, but Blackfire pulled some really messed up crap to the rest of the Titans, and then shot them into space to die, all just to hurt her sister. Talk about sadistic. And at 5, Jericho. Jericho is a character who was introduced in Tales of the Teen Titans issue 43 in 1984. He was a character who was part of a movement by Marv Wolfman and George Perez in establishing the Titans as a team who was not just the, I quote, Justice Little League, as Perez put it. The son of Deathstroke, Slade Wilson, Jericho was a mute, but wasn't born that way. When he was a child, he was held hostage by a terrorist group called Jackal, who was sent by the Korak president as a means of retaliation against Deathstroke. Although he managed to rescue his son, they cut Jericho's throat, which rendered him mute. Things only got worse for him from there on out. After going to the Teen Titans, he would become possessed by the souls of Azarath, who were originally coming for Raven, but Jericho's psychic powers made it easier to go after him instead. His throat was repaired and he could speak again, but during the Titans Hunt storyline, the real Jericho resurfaced and begged his father to kill him. So that's what Daddy Dearest did. Luckily for Jericho, he would live on, with his soul apparently jumping into Deathstroke after Papa stabbed him right through the heart. And at 4, Dick Grayson was sexually assaulted. Remember how earlier on we mentioned that Dick got his haircut by Mirage pretending to be Starfire? Well, it gets much worse than just the mullet. Mirage is the character who first debuted in the New Titans issue 79 in 1991. She was a member of the Team Titans from the future, the ones who went back in time with the goal of killing Donna Troy before she could give birth to her son who would grow up to be an evil dictator. While that was going on, Mirage ended up changing her appearance to look like Starfire, and she seduced Dick Grayson, sleeping with him, with Dick believing that he was sleeping with Starfire, although sensing that something was off about her. Now, for a little bit of context, back in the future, Mirage was in a romantic relationship with the Nightwing of her timeline, although that Nightwing was not Dick Grayson, which we would learn later on. Back to the present, Mirage eventually reveals herself to Grayson, who freaks out about the whole thing. To add insult to injury, Panther then appears and starts calling Dick a slut, all as the realization that he's been sexually assaulted sinks in. Come on, Panther. She just like pops up and is like, Dick, you're a slut. I believe it's actually, Dick, you slut. In at number 3, Deathwing rapes Mirage. Things only get worse for Mirage's story, as you can probably guess from the title of her number. Remember that Nightwing from the future that we mentioned? So he would travel to the past and reunite with Mirage, but the evil version of Raven decided that she was going to use Nightwing's body as the host for the Trigon Seed. She ends up going after this future version of Nightwing, who, just as a reminder, is not actually Dick Grayson. He's just another dude with a Nightwing persona, who, confusingly enough, looks just like Dick Grayson. This Nightwing would become corrupt and violent, which warrants him the new name of Deathwing. Deathwing goes to where Mirage is staying and then rapes her and impregnates her, and ultimately traumatizes the shit out of her. And at number 2, Deathstroke and Terra. In 1984, there was a story arc in the New Teen Titans called the Judas Contract, in which a metahuman named Terra joins the team, infiltrating them as a means of destroying them. Let's backtrack a sec though. Terra joined the team thanks to her Earth manipulation powers. She formed a romantic connection with Beast Boy and gained the rest of the team's trust, except for Raven, who's like, I'm onto you, girl. Then it's revealed that Terra is working with Deathstroke, that she smokes cigarettes, and her and the mercenary are implied to have a sexual relationship. relationship. She's also depicted as a total psychopath. George Perez would state that he and Marv Wolfman knew that she was going to be a traitor from the start and that she was going to be killed off. He literally stated of the character, I quote, "I wanted her to be cute but not beautiful. She looked like a young girl. I gave her a substantial overbite, her eyes were wide, her body was slim, she wasn't particularly busty. I wanted her to look almost elven, so that when you see her for the first time wearing full makeup and dressed in a provocative outfit where you know she's just been in bed with Deathstroke, that it does jab you a bit. Whoa, good god, this little girl's a slut." He actually said that. By the end of it, she's overcome by her own hatred, Slade abandons her, and then she ends up killing herself. Man, I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's just too much. But of course, last but not least, we have our number 1. Raven crashed Dick and Corey's wedding, and it got really weird. Despite Dick getting assaulted by Mirage, he and Corey actually worked through it. And he proposed to her. They were set to be married in New Titans issue 100, but the wedding ceremony was interrupted by Raven, who at the time was evil, and some pretty insane shit went down. Literally right before the priest is about to announce them man and wife, he gets obliterated, burnt down to a skeleton, and Raven shows up wearing basically a handful of ribbons with Deathwing in tow. It gets even more absurd. She creates a force field around herself and Starfire, blocking out everyone else at the wedding. Dick is literally on the outside like banging on the force field the entire time. She tells Starfire that she isn't really Raven. She's just wearing Raven's skin basically, and she's the summation of all of the 100 children Raven's father Trigon had sired and killed. Starfire seems to miss that though, still addressing her as Raven, telling her that she's scared. Raven then says, I quote, "After all, my love, you love me as much as I love you. You love me." She then forces Starfire to admit it back, then she straddles her, opens up her mouth, implying that the glow emitting from it are the souls of all those dead Trigon kids, and then proceeds to make out with Starfire, declaring that she will be reborn. The whole thing is really intense and really terrifying.
Number 10. His eyes. One thing that some artists have adhered to when it comes to giving Zsasz a consistent look involves his eyes. If you read a lot of Batman comics and run into Zsasz on the regular, a few things that seem to change from time to time involving his character design is the number of tally marks his body is covered in. And sometimes he has hair, while other times he is bald. The Birds of Prey movie seems to be opting for the cropped blonde look, while in Gotham he is going for more of the full bald crazy eye look. But regardless of which hairstyle he seems to be sporting in the comics, he will every now and then have a particular look to his eyes, a very particular look. Zsasz is known for sporting this wild and ruthless look in his eyes, which for many years was presented as a focused glint. This is very the 90s Zsasz. It was like his head was tilted down and his eyes were just 2 triangle shadows with just like a tiny spot of white in each of them. When he's not sporting this iconic dastardly look, his eyes tend to be wild and crazed, so either way, he's known for having frightening eyes. Definitely not a face you'd want to run into in a dark alley. Number 9. Resourceful. While his weapon of choice is typically a knife, there is nothing that will hold Victor Zsasz back from killing. Even in the No Man's Land story arc where he was unarmed and actually being nursed back to health by a woman named Leslie, he still could not help himself from attacking her and her assistant Mikey and attempting to kill Mikey with just his fingernails. And he actually came close too, he got an artery. When he regains consciousness and is free of his bonds, he aims to kill Leslie as well with his bare hands. Even without a weapon, Zsasz is both terrifying and deadly. So if he doesn't have his knife, you should still be concerned. Number 8. Almost killed Batman. At one point when Batman was training Stephanie Brown, the two tracked Zsasz down to a subway tunnel. Zsasz managed to steal Stephanie Brown away, leaving Batman to come after her, which was a good thing too, because although she was putting up a pretty good fight, Victor was about to kill her just as Batman got the literal jump on him. Despite not having superpowers and getting beaten around pretty hard, there is an intense headbutt in this fight that comes from the bats. Zsasz manages to hold his own, with a deranged sense of determination sparkling in his eye. Those crazy eyes I was talking about. He not only dislocates Batman's shoulder, but due to the fact that Batman often does his best not to fight lethally, Batman ends up on his back and getting strangled by Zsasz. In the end, Stephanie comes and saves the day, reminding all of us and Zsasz that she is not a Robin to be forgotten. Number 7. Killed Alfred. In the Injustice comics, Victor ends up being sent to Alfred to uncover where Batman is hiding. When Alfred refuses to give up any information he might have, Victor kills him with his knife, stabbing him a few times playfully before going in for the kill. Damian finds Alfred's body when he's on his way down to the Batcave with presents to celebrate Alfred's birthday! No! Later, Victor gloats to Batman, who shows back up to take him in and uncover just who sent Zsasz to threaten Alfred. Batman obviously assumes that it is Superman. I mean, obviously, this is injustice we're talking about. Victor even proudly shows off the mark he has made for Alfred on his neck, saying that it is one of his favorite marks. And in the Nightfall story arc of the main continuity, Zsasz actually almost kills Alfred. And when Zsasz discovers that Alfred survived the attack, he becomes obsessed with finishing the job, as he had already tallied the kill with a mark on his body. This is when we really get to see how addicted Zsasz is to killing. Batman lures Zsasz into a trap after he escaped him using Alfred as bait, but was able to apprehend him before Zsasz could finish what he had originally started. Thank goodness. Still, using Alfred as bait? Batman, how dare you? Number 6 was a Man-Bat. In Detective Comics Volume 2, Issue 19, we saw Victor Zsasz transform into even more of a monster, if that's possible. He was given a blade by Emperor Penguin, aka Ignatius Ogilvy, and asked to wreak havoc using the blade and a serum that Ignatius had given Victor to dip it into, promising that it would bring glorious death to all. That serum was actually Man-Bat serum. Knowing that Zsasz was a ruthless and unapologetic killer, Ignatius hoped that he would help to spread the virus and create chaos in Gotham by creating an army of Man-Bats. And he was right, but Victor himself also experienced the horrific transformation as well. An antidote gas was later emitted that turned him back into his old self in the end though. Fortunately, Zsasz was then later captured and of course returned to Arkham, where he always seems to end back up. Number 5. Even killing from prison. That's right, even prison did not stop Zsasz's kill count. Even when he's locked up, Victor has been known to be a great threat. One time when he was locked up in Arkham, Zsasz actually found a way out of the asylum through an escape tunnel. While he was locked up, this allowed him to get back out, kill people, and then return so no one would suspect him, and he could basically just continue killing indefinitely. The thing that gave him away was his MO, which Batman and Nightwing had pinned down at that point. Batman became suspicious because of the way the killings seemed to be linked together and pointed at Victor. In the end, Batman infiltrated Arkham Asylum to find the tunnel and put a stop to Zsasz just in the nick of time. He had just escaped Arkham again, and he was in the middle of attacking Nightwing and probably killing him when Batman apprehended the sociopathic serial killer. Jeez, Victor Zsasz almost kills everyone, just FYI. He comes so close to killing people all the time and I'm like, no, no. Number 4. Ran a children fighting ring. Yep, this happened. In Batman Streets of Gotham issue 10 and 11, we see just how sociopathic Victor Zsasz really is. In case you didn't already know, Zsasz is the kind of killer who doesn't discriminate. He kills the old, the young, the pregnant. Killing children is not below him. In his eyes, everyone deserves death, no matter how young they are. But even for him, this plotline was pretty twisted. It involved Victor being the leader of a children fighting ring wherein children would fight gladiator style to the death. After a few rounds, if they continued to survive, they would get to square off with Victor. What a great prize! Who would then undoubtedly end up killing them. Ugh. Of course, this dastardly plot all fell apart when Zsasz's men ended up recruiting Damian Wayne and a juiced up Venom youth Colin, aka Abuse, for the fighting ring. After suffering a lot of stabbing, in the end these two youngsters were able to team up to finally take down Zsasz in the end and put a stop to his vile plot. He gets stabbed a lot though. He got stabbed a lot, but he survived. Number 3. Kill count. Victor Zsasz is just a really terrifying serial killer because he is so proud of all of the twisted acts of murder that he's committed. He glorifies his killing by keeping account of them on his body, marking his body for each murder that he has committed with a single tally mark, which wouldn't be so intimidating if he only had like 3 on his arm or something. But we're not talking about a handful of marks or a handful of killings here. We're talking about full body tally marks for the most part, covering all of Zsasz's body. One comic from the 90s suggested that his kill count around then was at 143. Still, some artists decide to present Zsasz with more marks than even he almost has room for, showing him covered head to toe in tally marks, sometimes even on his face. Although it does beg the question, what happens when Victor runs out of room? Would he just retire? How will he get them on his back? That's why you'll notice he usually doesn't have any on his back, because I think he's like, I can't, it's hard to do, how do you do this? Number 2. The way he leaves his victims. Victor Zsasz is very particular when it comes to his killings. He usually kills with a knife, he has very specific motives usually, he's criminally insane but he's still crafty and intelligent, and he enjoys posing his victims and leaving them in creepily lifelike positions for people to find. Proving that while Batman definitely has a lot of dark creeps in his villain roster, the Victor is still one of the most disturbed. It's just creepy, it's like you turn the corner and you're like, is that person? Oh no, their throat is slit. Oh my gosh, they're dead. Ah. Number 1. He's got a point. Victor wasn't always a crazed killer. He actually had a respectable and loving upbringing. He came from a wealthy family, and after the loss of his parents found himself feeling depressed, despite the fact that he accepted their deaths. He turned to gambling to try and spark something within him, some small amount of feeling, but he just ended up losing everything to Penguin in a game in the end. He noticed that he felt the same regardless of whether or not he had his family's fortune, and discovered that material goods, like life, were pretty much meaningless. Whilst trying to jump off a bridge to kill himself, he was attacked by a ne'er-do-well who sought to rob him, threatening Victor with a knife. Looking into the empty eyes of his assailant, Victor realized that his attacker was just as empty as he was. Victor fought and killed the man, marking himself to remind him that he too was a mere meaningless human. He kills because he believes he is freeing people from the mundanity and materialistic emptiness of their life. And to be fair, there are a lot of unhappy, material-obsessed people out there. So one can almost understand where he is coming from. Not sure if it means that you should kill people, but still, he's got a good point when it comes to his outlook on humanity and life.
Number 10. Charlton characters. One of the things you'll often see if you dive into any form of analysis of this work is the fact that it's a deconstruction of some of the superhero mythos. The way it achieves this is by presenting highly nuanced and flawed characters. What you may see next is the comparisons to DC characters, the whole "oh, so this character is Superman and this one is Batman," etc. However, when Alan Moore first conceived of the Watchmen, he actually wanted to write it using the characters from Charlton Comics. Charlton had been founded in the mid-1940s, 1945 to be exact, and was named after the co-founders' two sons, both coincidentally named Charlie. So which characters did they have? Well, they had characters like the Blue Beetle, who would now become the more obvious inspiration for Night Owl if one is applying Charlton rationale. The Question was meant to be Rorschach. These characters and more were only acquired in 1983. Charlton held on for a long time before being swallowed up. DC had initially planned to allow Moore to use these characters, but upon seeing the draft of how he intended to use them, decided against it, as they felt his work would ruin the characters for future use, so they saved them to fold into the general DC universe instead. You can definitely draw comparisons to standard DC characters with the Watchmen characters, but they're actually not direct one-to-one comparisons for this exact reason. Number 9. Padded. Now when most discuss the Watchmen, they have only good things to say about the pacing. Most, not all. So would it surprise you to know that the series is heavily padded? About 6 issues worth of padding actually. The Watchmen was a maxi series, meaning 12 issues. However, when Moore was done plotting the main story, he realized, whoops, there's only enough plot here for 6 issues. So he then went back and added more, far more to the characters' backstories and general metaphor to make sure it hit its targeted 12 issues. However, unlike other padded works, this really helped flesh out the world, and make some of the points resonate a little harder, like the whole Black Freighter parallel pirate story, which is also a send-up to EC Comics, the alternative genre comic publishing company that went bankrupt following the Great Moral Panic about comic books in the early 1950s, post-World War II. Number 8. Overtaking Marvel. Throughout DC and Marvel's history as fierce competitors, which only truly began when Atlas took on the name Marvel in 1961 alongside the creation of Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family, Marvel has tended to have a sales edge, just selling more, which has led to much general smugness, despite the fact that more sold doesn't directly translate to better product. Look how many copies of 50 Shades sold, just saying. However, when The Watchmen was released in 1986 through 1987, DC briefly overtook their rival in sales, which for them heralded just how important it would be to hold on tightly to this property, which leads us directly into number 7. Number 7. Alan Moore hates DC. For anybody who's looked up anything about Moore, this will come up quickly. His beef with the company is well known, and he's not shy about talking about it. He doesn't keep quiet. And well, it's understandable. When him and artist Dave Gibbons first negotiated their deal with DC, in it was a clause that stated that once publication of the work lapsed for a year, and if nothing was done with the characters, the rights would revert back to the two of them. Now, Moore would later state after what happened that DC had paid the two of them quite a bit to retain the rights to the characters, but that he was still blindsided by what happened. In a truly clever, dastardly bit of loophole shenanigans, DC simply never let the book go out of print. If the work was constantly being published, the rights could never revert. Once he realized what had happened, Moore severed ties with them, which they would then use as a go-ahead to adapt the work into film, create other comic book spin-offs, merge the universes, create a TV show, all kinds of things that Moore hates. However, as always, just because he hates it doesn't mean you have to. Still pretty scuzzy DC, but all of these companies have skeletons like this in their closets. Business can get really ugly, people. Number 6. Hated the adaptation. So while all of that in place, it should be no surprise that Moore hates the adaptation, all of them, but the film was the first, so we'll deal with that one. He has actually refused to watch it, as he feels that the work he made was made to be a comic book, not to be a film. That it was a celebration of what comics as a medium could do. That comics are their own field, they don't need to be propped up by film, and that them being adapted doesn't somehow make them better or more worthy. In fact, it may mean they're not taking full advantage of the medium, because they can be so easily transcribed across mediums. So harsh. But I get it. Sometimes, especially these days, there's this idea that adaptation is the brass ring, the cookie of comicdom. Congrats, you made it, have a cookie. When what he's saying is that creating your best work should be the reward. If it gets mass distribution, who cares? Which, I mean, it's easy to say when your work did get mass distribution. At the same time though, there can be advantages to adapting works, and it can bring out new facets. Still 100% agree that one shouldn't go into one field hoping it becomes something else. That's stepping stone logic, and it can actually at times make your work worse. Number 5. Hypocrite. So the new Watchmen HBO series. The creator has beef with Alan Moore and thinks he's a hypocrite for not wanting his work adapted into other mediums. Tell us how you really feel, and he's about to. He feels that it's selfish. His rationale is that Moore wrote Batman the Killing Joke and Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, a Superman story, and those were working with pre-established characters in a new way, so why are his characters off limits? It's quote time. The idea that he came in and told iconic stories of characters that he didn't create, and has now turned around and said, you're not allowed to do that with the iconic characters that I created, I sort of feel like his own hypocrisy enables me to defile his work. So defile. Defile means to ruin or spoil something. So are you saying you're going in and deliberately trying to ruin his work, or are you just putting your own spin on it? Because those are two very different things. One may be what he perceives as spoiling, and the other is purposely trying to ruin it. I don't think any person would want their work defiled. I'm hoping he just chose the wrong word, because if not, it takes his whole sentiment, which makes sense from a death of the author standpoint that works are open to interpretation once they're out there, and it makes it really petty. Like, you told me I couldn't do this, so F you. I don't know. Defile. Yikes. Number 4. Choose your morals. One of the unique elements of Watchmen that is definitely missed in its DC Doomsday Clock comic crossover, and somewhat in other adaptations, is that it was designed to be ambiguous in its morality. Moore discusses that who he views as the 5 leads are meant to represent different philosophical approaches to looking at heroism, and that it was up to the reader to decide how they felt about what had happened. It's for this reason that Adrian isn't classed as a villain by the story, because depending upon your outlook, he isn't, and the comic allows you to feel that way and doesn't judge you for it, which in a medium that can sometimes yell at you to think this way or to feel this way about any given plot is frankly quite refreshing. Watchmen assumes a few things. It assumes you're smart and that you have the capacity for critical thought, and that allows you to exercise said thought. What a novel concept. I'm only half being sarcastic. Some works assume you're really dumb and get real condescending. Number 3. Before Watchmen. So this was a prequel comic book series released in 2012, written by a bunch of famous comic book authors and drawn by many artists. And also Alan Moore hates it. He views it as a cash grab and an insult on a work that was for all intents and purposes in his mind complete. The idea that not all questions need to be answered directly, that that's what your imagination is for. However, and here's where I subscribe to the you can walk your own path, some of these are good. It's a mixed bag. I get the puritanical, no, I stand with Moore, but some of them are good and enhance the lore, and others should never be spoken of again. And these will be different for each person, depending upon how you felt about each character and the original work. So yes, this exists. People don't really talk about it, but I remember, and I own all of them. Yes, commence the hazing now. Number 2. The Architects of Fear. The reveal of Adrian's plan at the end of The Watchmen is a horrifying revelation for the characters, but also for the audience, that Ozymandias was behind a lot of the things that they were investigating. So for some, this was really shocking and they hadn't seen a plot like this before. However, that was not the case for everyone. In fact, when editing the work, the editor, Len Wein, found that it bore a striking resemblance to the Outer Limits episode The Architects of Fear. In fact, he found the similarity so striking that when Moore stood by his plot, he quit as editor. So this episode aired in 1963 and is set during the Cold War as the world waits for the impending nuclear holocaust. In an attempt to stop the apocalypse, United Labs strive to create a fake alien invasion to unite the world. However, it veers off from here. The scientists have been studying life on the planet Theta and have managed to duplicate the inhabitants there, and they seek to turn one of their own, a human, into an alien threat. But it goes wrong, and well, nobody sees them, and then there's some psychic stuff and a pregnant wife. Yeah. But the core concept is there. But I don't know, there's so much more around it in Watchmen. I don't think I would have quit as editor, but that's just me. Number 1. Dr. Manhattan caused Flashpoint. So Doomsday Clock is the fusion of the DC and Watchmen universes in comic book form, which, well, I didn't need, but just like how I don't need to always agree with Moore, you don't have to always agree with me. So this event started coming out in 2017, so the end of the New 52, and it's still going due to some unbelievable art delays. So now that Moore has been released, it appears this story was supposed to have a huge impact on how exactly the New 52 came to be, absolving Barry Allen of much of the, well, drama of Flashpoint and the responsibility. Since when Flashpoint began, it was all, okay, yeah, his mom's alive, but why did that make Bruce be the one who got shot, or the Amazons and Atlanteans be at war? Some were like, well, it's just the butterfly effect. But Doomsday Clock postulates that it was Dr. Manhattan messing with the fabric of the metaverse, as he calls the DC-verse, by tweaking Superman's origin, which he has come to see as the focal point of the DC universe. However, if this turns out to be the case, at this point will that have any impact? We're in Rebirth now, the New 52 is long behind, and the long gaps in release mean that the momentum of this series has been lost. The art is beautiful, but was it worth the wait?